You think seniors living alone had to settle for bland, lonely meals? Think again. Before convenience foods took over, resourceful elders across America turned cheap cuts and pantry staples into protein-rich dishes that kept them strong and independent. Let's dig into 30 forgotten vintage high-protein meals no one makes anymore. Sardines on toast was the protein powerhouse that kept seniors nourished when cooking felt impossible. A single can packed more protein and calcium than expensive meats, and preparation couldn't be simpler. Open the can, lay the fish across buttered toast, and eat. The tiny bones softened during canning and provided essential calcium that aging bodies desperately needed. During the 1940s and 1950s, sardines cost pennies per can and required no refrigeration until opened, perfect for seniors on fixed incomes. The fish arrived already cooked and seasoned in olive oil or mustard sauce, eliminating complicated preparation. Many elderly widows kept cans stacked in their pantries, knowing that even on their most tired days, a complete meal was minutes away. The strong, briny flavor paired beautifully with lemon juice and black pepper. Seniors knew sardines meant survival, independence, and the quiet dignity of feeding yourself well without asking anyone for help. Canned mackerel cakes turned a humble tin of fish into golden, crispy patties that rivaled any restaurant offering. Seniors would drain the can, mash the fish with a fork, then mix it with beaten egg, crushed saltine crackers, minced onion, and black pepper. The mixture held together perfectly when shaped into patties and fried in bacon grease until both sides turned crispy and golden. Mackerel was cheaper than salmon but just as nutritious, providing protein and omega fatty acids that kept aging joints flexible. The patties required only one small skillet and less than 15 minutes from can to plate, ideal for seniors who tired easily or found standing at the stove difficult. Served hot with lemon or tartar sauce, these cakes tasted far more sophisticated than their simple origins suggested. Many seniors ate them twice weekly throughout the 1950s, never realizing they were practicing nutrition science that wouldn't be formally recognized for decades. Navy bean soup sustained countless seniors through cold winters when heating bills strained tight budgets. A pound of dried navy beans cost mere cents and could simmer all day on low heat, filling small apartments with warmth and fragrance. The preparation required nothing more than soaking beans overnight, then cooking them slowly with a ham bone, onion, and water until everything melted into creamy richness. The ham bone contributed smoky depth and gelatin that made the broth silky, while the beans provided complete protein when eaten with cornbread. Seniors living alone could make a single pot stretch across 4 or 5 days, reheating portions as needed. The soup actually improved with age, flavors deepening as it sat in the icebox overnight. This wasn't just economical eating. It was wise eating that required minimal effort while delivering maximum nourishment. For widows managing on Social Security checks, navy bean soup represented security in a bowl, warmth without worry. Cottage cheese with canned peaches was the lunch that required no cooking, no planning, and almost no cleanup. Exactly what seniors needed when energy ran low. A scoop of cottage cheese provided complete protein and calcium without the heaviness of meat, while canned peaches in syrup added natural sweetness and vitamins. The combination could be assembled in under a minute using nothing more than a bowl and spoon, perfect for hot summer days when heating the kitchen seemed unbearable. During the 1960s, cottage cheese was marketed specifically to older Americans as a healthy, digestible protein source. The peach's gentle sweetness balanced the cottage cheese's tang, creating a satisfying meal that felt almost like dessert. Seniors often ate this 3 or 4 times weekly, sometimes adding cinnamon or crushed walnuts for variety. It was sustenance without fuss, dignity without struggle, and proof that eating well alone didn't require slaving over a hot stove or complicated preparations. Kidney bean loaf was the meatless marvel that delivered protein-packed slices at a fraction of meat's cost. Seniors would mash cooked kidney beans with breadcrumbs, beaten egg, minced onion, and seasonings, then press the mixture into a small loaf pan and bake until firm. The loaf sliced beautifully once cooled, revealing a dense, satisfying interior that could be served hot with gravy or cold in sandwiches the next day. For seniors watching meat budgets during the 1950s and 1960s, kidney bean loaf stretched resources without sacrificing nutrition. The beans provided fiber that kept digestion regular, while eggs added protein and helped bind everything together. Many elderly cooks glazed their loaves with ketchup before baking, creating a sweet, tangy crust reminiscent of meatloaf. One loaf could provide 3 or 4 meals, exceptionally practical for those cooking alone. This wasn't deprivation, it was ingenuity, proving satisfying meals didn't require expensive ingredients. Poached eggs on creamed spinach transformed 2 humble ingredients into something approaching elegance. Seniors would heat canned spinach with milk and butter, seasoning it with nutmeg until velvety and rich. A perfectly poached egg, whites set, yolk still runny, was nestled on top, creating a meal that delivered protein, iron, and vitamins in every forkful. The runny yolk became its own sauce, mixing with the creamed spinach to create flavors far more sophisticated than the preparation suggested. This dish required only 1 small pot and a skillet, minimizing both effort and cleanup. For seniors struggling with iron deficiency or fatigue, the combination of egg and spinach provided exactly what their bodies needed. The meal came together in under 15 minutes and cost almost nothing, yet looked and tasted like something from a proper restaurant. Many widows served this to themselves as a small act of self-care, proving that eating alone didn't mean eating poorly. Canned salmon patties were the pink-centered comfort food that graced countless senior tables throughout the mid-20th century. A can of salmon was drained and mixed with cracker crumbs, egg, minced onion, and seasonings, then shaped into patties and fried until golden brown. The salmon's natural oils kept the patties moist inside, while the exterior developed a satisfying crunch. Canned salmon was affordable and required no special storage, perfect for seniors without large refrigerators. The fish provided complete protein plus omega fatty acids that helped maintain heart health and cognitive function. Many seniors fried their patties in butter, which added richness without overwhelming the delicate salmon flavor. Served with lemon wedges and a simple salad, salmon patties felt like a proper dinner rather than survival food. For elderly widowers who'd never learned to cook, this was often among the first recipes they mastered, simple enough to be foolproof, delicious enough to make repeatedly. Split pea soup with ham bone turned Sunday's leftover ham into a week's worth of nourishing meals. After the ham was eaten, seniors would drop the bone into a pot with dried split peas, water, onion, and carrots, then let everything simmer until the peas dissolved into velvety thickness. The ham bone released its smoky essence, and whatever meat clung to it shredded into the soup, providing protein throughout every spoonful. Split peas required no overnight soaking, making this soup more spontaneous than navy bean versions. The finished soup was thick enough that a spoon could stand upright in it, and the flavor was deeply savory with sweetness from the carrots. Seniors could refrigerate portions and reheat throughout the week, the soup improving as flavors melded. This represented ultimate economical eating. The ham bone was essentially free, having already served its purpose. For seniors counting every penny, split pea soup proved delicious meals could emerge from what others might discard. Stewed chicken backs and necks delivered rich, meaty flavor from parts most people overlooked. Butchers sold these bony pieces for almost nothing, knowing only resourceful cooks understood their potential. Seniors would simmer the backs and necks slowly with onion, celery, and herbs until the meat fell from the bones and the broth turned golden. The resulting stew was served over rice or biscuits, the rich gravy coating everything with savory goodness. The meat itself was surprisingly tender, having spent hours absorbing flavors from slow cooking. For seniors on fixed incomes, these neglected chicken parts provided complete protein at a fraction of breast or thigh prices. The bones contributed gelatin that made the broth silky and helped soothe aging joints. Many elderly cooks would pick through the stew, removing bones and reserving meat for sandwiches the next day. This dish required patience rather than skill, making it perfect for seniors who had time but limited energy for complicated cooking. Milk toast with soft boiled egg was the gentle meal that comforted seniors when their stomachs couldn't handle heavier fare. Slices of bread were toasted golden, placed in a shallow bowl, then covered with warm milk seasoned with butter and salt. A soft-boiled egg with runny yolk was placed alongside or sliced directly onto the milk-soaked toast. The combination was easy to chew, easy to digest, and surprisingly satisfying despite its plainness. During the 1940s and 1950s, doctors often prescribed milk toast for patients recovering from illness, and many seniors continued eating it simply because it felt nurturing. The warm milk absorbed into the toast, creating something between soup and bread pudding, while the egg provided protein that helped rebuild strength. This meal required minimal preparation and could be made even when exhaustion or illness made standing at the stove difficult. For elderly men and women living alone, milk toast represented self-care in its simplest form. Canned corned beef hash was the breakfast that could stretch into lunch or dinner without complaint. Seniors would scoop the contents of a can into a cast-iron skillet, pressing it flat and letting it crisp on the bottom before flipping sections to brown the other side. The combination of shredded corned beef and diced potatoes provided both protein and carbohydrates in a single affordable package. A fried egg placed on top turned it into a complete meal that satisfied for hours. The hash required no preparation beyond opening the can and heating, making it ideal for mornings when energy was scarce. During the 1950s, brands like Hormel and Libby's made corned beef hash a pantry staple in senior households across America. The crispy edges contrasted beautifully with the tender interior, and ketchup or hot sauce added brightness. For widowers who'd never learned elaborate cooking, hash was forgiving and nearly impossible to ruin while still delivering genuine satisfaction. Baked beans with salt pork was the slow-cooked comfort that filled small apartments with molasses-sweet fragrance for hours. Seniors would soak navy beans overnight, then layer them in a heavy pot with chunks of salt pork, molasses, mustard, and onion before baking low and slow until everything melded into sticky richness. The salt pork rendered its fat into the beans while contributing smoky, salty depth that no seasoning packet could replicate. A single batch provided protein-rich meals for nearly a week, improving with each reheating as flavors concentrated. For seniors on fixed incomes during the 1940s and 1950s, this dish represented affordable abundance. A pound of dried beans and a small piece of salt pork fed one person for days. The beans provided fiber and protein, while the pork added essential fats that aging bodies needed. Served with brown bread or cornbread, baked beans became a complete meal that tasted like someone had spent all day cooking just for you. Creamed eggs on toast was the gentle breakfast that nourished seniors when mornings started slowly. Hard-boiled eggs were chopped and folded into a simple white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk, then spooned over crisp toast. The dish provided complete protein in a form that was easy to chew and digest, perfect for elderly folks whose teeth or stomachs had grown sensitive. Making the white sauce required only basic pantry staples and a few minutes of stirring, nothing elaborate or exhausting. Seniors often prepared extra hard-boiled eggs earlier in the week specifically for this purpose, simplifying morning routines. The creamy sauce transformed plain eggs into something approaching elegance, the kind of meal you might find in a proper tea room. A sprinkle of paprika or fresh parsley added color without complication. For widows and widowers eating alone, creamed eggs on toast proved that breakfast could still feel special even when cooking for one. Cheese Dreams were the open-faced sandwiches that turned ordinary bread and cheese into something almost magical. Seniors would top slices of bread with American or cheddar cheese, sometimes adding a slice of tomato or a strip of bacon, then broil until the cheese bubbled and turned golden brown at the edges. The name came from childhood memories. Many seniors had grown up calling them Cheese Dreams, and the name stuck through decades. The dish provided calcium and protein in a form that required almost no effort, just assembly and a few minutes under the broiler. During lean times, Cheese Dreams served as a complete dinner, filling and satisfying despite their simplicity. The melted cheese developed slightly crispy edges while staying gooey in the center, creating textures that made each bite interesting. For seniors whose appetites had shrunk with age, a single cheese dream often provided exactly enough nourishment without overwhelming. This was comfort food in its purest form. Canned Vienna sausages were the tiny protein packages that seniors kept stacked in pantries for days when cooking felt impossible. The small, soft sausages could be eaten straight from the can at room temperature, requiring no preparation whatsoever. For elderly folks with limited mobility or energy, this convenience was genuinely life-changing. The sausages provided protein and fat that kept blood sugar stable and hunger at bay, all for pennies per serving. During the 1950s and 1960s, Vienna sausages were marketed as convenient snacks, but seniors understood their true value as survival food. Eaten with crackers and a slice of cheese, they became a proper meal. Some seniors heated them briefly in their liquid, which softened them further and made them easier to chew. The mild, slightly smoky flavor appealed to palates that had grown sensitive to strong tastes. Vienna sausages represented independence in a can, the ability to feed yourself adequately even on your most difficult days. Oxtail soup was the rich, gelatinous broth that butchers practically gave away to seniors who understood its hidden value. The bony tails were simmered for hours with vegetables until the meat fell from the bones and the collagen melted into silky, bodybuilding broth. For seniors with joint pain or arthritis, this natural gelatin provided relief that no pill could match. The soup required patience rather than skill, just time and a low flame while the magic happened slowly. A single oxtail could produce enough soup for several meals, each bowl rich with tender meat and vegetables in that remarkable broth. During the 1940s and 1950s, oxtails cost almost nothing because most shoppers overlooked them. Seniors who knew better would simmer them with carrots, celery, onions, and tomatoes until the kitchen smelled like grandmother's house. The soup reheated beautifully, actually improving over days as flavors melded. This was old-world cooking that delivered genuine nourishment. Pickled herring with onions was the briny delicacy that kept seniors connected to old-world traditions while delivering remarkable nutrition. The silver fish came packed in jars with vinegar, onions, and spices, ready to eat without any cooking required. Herring provided protein and omega fatty acids that supported heart health and brain function, something medical science would later confirm. For seniors of Northern European descent, pickled herring was comfort food that reminded them of childhood kitchens and holiday tables. The fish was soft enough to eat without difficulty, and the tangy brine stimulated appetites that had grown weary. A few pieces served on crackers or dark bread made a complete lunch that cost almost nothing. The onions in the jar were equally prized, having absorbed the herring's essence during pickling. Many seniors ate pickled herring several times weekly, never realizing they were following what nutritionists would later call a heart-healthy diet. Black-eyed peas with ham hock was the humble pot of luck that sustained seniors throughout the South and beyond. A smoked ham hock simmered slowly with dried black-eyed peas, onion, and garlic until the peas turned creamy and the meat fell from the bone. The ham hock cost almost nothing, yet contributed enormous smoky depth to the entire pot. Black-eyed peas provided protein and fiber in a form that was gentle on aging digestive systems. For seniors cooking alone, a single pot stretched across 4 or 5 days of satisfying meals served over rice or with cornbread. The dish improved with each reheating as flavors continued melding. Many Southern seniors ate black-eyed peas on New Year's Day for luck, but they returned to the dish throughout the year for practical nourishment. The cooking liquid, called pot liquor, was considered almost medicinal. Seniors would sip it from cups for its concentrated nutrients and warming comfort. Peanut butter and banana sandwiches delivered protein, potassium, and satisfaction in a combination that required no cooking and almost no cleanup. Seniors would spread peanut butter across bread slices, lay banana rounds on top, and press everything together for a meal that provided sustained energy for hours. The peanut butter supplied complete protein and healthy fats, while the banana added natural sweetness and potassium that helped regulate blood pressure. During the 1950s, this combination gained popularity after reports that Elvis Presley favored it, but seniors had been eating it quietly for years. The soft textures made it easy to chew, important for those whose teeth had grown unreliable. a single sandwich cost pennies to make and satisfied hunger without leaving seniors feeling overstuffed. For elderly folks living alone, this was often lunch, quick, nutritious, and requiring nothing more than a knife and plate. The combination tasted almost like dessert. Soft scrambled eggs with cheese was the gentle morning protein that seniors could prepare even on their most exhausted days. Eggs were beaten with a splash of milk, then stirred slowly over low heat until they formed soft, creamy curds rather than rubbery chunks. Shredded cheese was folded in at the end, melting into the warm eggs and adding both calcium and richness. The entire process required less than 5 minutes in a single small pan, minimizing both effort and cleanup. For seniors whose energy flagged before noon, these eggs provided protein that stabilized blood sugar and sustained mental clarity. The soft texture was easy to chew and digest, kinder to aging systems than heavier breakfast meats. Many seniors ate this 3 or 4 mornings weekly, varying the cheese or adding a sprinkle of herbs for interest. Served with toast for scooping, soft scrambled eggs became a ritual of self-care that proved cooking for one could still feel nurturing. Liver and bacon was the iron-rich meal that doctors recommended and seniors actually enjoyed eating. Thin slices of calf or beef liver were dredged in seasoned flour and fried quickly in bacon drippings until just pink inside, then served alongside crispy bacon strips. The liver provided more iron per ounce than almost any other food, essential for seniors battling anemia or fatigue. The bacon's saltiness and crunch balanced the liver's mineral richness, creating a combination greater than its parts. During the 1940s and 1950s, liver cost far less than muscle meats, yet delivered superior nutrition. Seniors often ate it weekly on doctor's orders, though many grew to genuinely love the deep, almost sweet flavor of properly cooked liver. The key was not overcooking. Rubbery liver was universally despised, but tender pink slices won converts. Served with onions that had been softened in the bacon fat, liver and bacon became a complete meal that kept energy levels stable for hours. Deviled ham on crackers was the no-cook protein that seniors kept ready for moments when preparing a real meal felt overwhelming. The small tins of finely ground, spiced ham spread easily onto crackers without any preparation beyond opening the can. For seniors with limited hand strength or dexterity, the soft spread required no cutting or difficult manipulation. The ham provided protein and fat that satisfied hunger quickly, while the crackers added crunch and substance. During the 1950s and 1960s, deviled ham was marketed as a convenient snack, but seniors recognized its value as genuine sustenance. A tin and a sleeve of crackers made a complete lunch that could be assembled at the kitchen table without standing. The slightly spicy, smoky flavor appealed to palates that had grown bored with bland institutional food. Many seniors kept several tins stacked in their pantries, knowing that even on their worst days, adequate nutrition was within easy reach. Egg salad sandwiches provided complete protein in a form that was soft, flavorful, and required no teeth-challenging chewing. Hard-boiled eggs were mashed with mayonnaise, a little mustard, salt, and pepper until creamy enough to spread across soft bread. Some seniors added minced celery for crunch or sweet pickle relish for brightness, but the basic version satisfied perfectly well. The eggs could be boiled earlier in the week and stored in the icebox, making sandwich assembly a matter of minutes. For seniors whose appetites had diminished, egg salad's mild flavor and soft texture went down easily without overwhelming sensitive stomachs. The mayonnaise added richness and calories that helped maintain weight, important for elderly folks who sometimes forgot to eat enough. A single sandwich provided roughly the same protein as a small steak at a fraction of the cost. Egg salad became lunch 3 or 4 times weekly in many senior households, reliable and genuinely enjoyable. Canned chicken soup with noodles was the healing comfort that seniors turned to whenever body or spirit needed restoration. Opening a can required minimal effort, and within minutes, hot soup steamed in a bowl ready to nourish. The broth provided hydration and electrolytes, while the chicken pieces added protein and the noodles contributed satisfying carbohydrates. For seniors recovering from colds, flu, or simply exhaustion, chicken soup felt like medicine that actually tasted good. The sodium content, sometimes criticized today, actually helped elderly bodies retain necessary fluids. Many seniors kept several cans stacked in their pantries, knowing this comfort was always minutes away. The familiar taste connected them to childhood memories of being cared for when sick, providing emotional nourishment alongside physical sustenance. Crackers crumbled into the bowl stretched the meal further while adding texture. Canned chicken soup represented security, knowing that even alone, comfort was within reach. Cheese and crackers with sliced apple was the afternoon snack that prevented blood sugar crashes and bridged the long gap between lunch and dinner. A few slices of cheddar or Swiss cheese provided protein and calcium, while crackers added satisfying crunch and the apple contributed fiber and natural sweetness. The combination required no cooking, no complicated assembly, and could be eaten slowly while reading or listening to the radio. For seniors whose appetites had shrunk with age, this light meal often replaced dinner entirely on hot summer evenings. The cheese stayed fresh in the icebox for weeks, crackers kept indefinitely in the pantry, and apples stored well in cool spots. Together, they provided balanced nutrition without heaviness or excessive preparation. Many seniors ate this combination daily at precisely 3 o'clock, a ritual that structured otherwise formless afternoons. The sweetness of apple against sharp cheese created flavor contrasts that kept the simple snack interesting. Chicken livers with onions delivered remarkable nutrition from parts that grocery stores practically gave away. The small livers were dusted with seasoned flour and sautéed quickly in butter until just pink inside, then piled atop sweet onions cooked slowly until golden. Chicken livers provided more iron and vitamin A than almost any other affordable protein, essential for seniors battling fatigue. The onion's sweetness balanced the liver's mineral intensity, creating a dish that converted skeptics into devotees. For seniors watching budgets during the 1950s, chicken livers cost mere cents per pound while delivering premium nutrition. The cooking required only a single skillet and 15 minutes of attention, manageable even for those with limited energy. Served over toast or rice, chicken livers with onions became a complete meal, proving that the cheapest ingredients often delivered the greatest value. Broiled cheese and tomato was the open-faced sandwich that turned pantry staples into something approaching a proper meal. A thick slice of ripe tomato was placed on bread, topped with cheese, and broiled until the cheese bubbled and browned while the tomato softened and released its sweet juices. The combination provided protein from cheese, vitamins from tomato, and carbohydrates from bread, nutritionally complete in a single dish. Preparation required nothing more than a few minutes under the broiler, manageable even for seniors whose stamina had waned. The tomato's acidity cut through the cheese's richness, creating balance that made each bite satisfying. During summer, when gardens produced tomatoes faster than they could be eaten, this dish appeared on senior tables several times weekly. For elderly cooks eating alone, broiled cheese and tomato proved that simple didn't mean unsatisfying or lonely. Red beans and rice was the Monday tradition that turned dried beans and leftover ham into a week-starting feast. Seniors would simmer kidney beans slowly with ham bone, onion, celery, and bay leaf until the beans turned creamy and the broth thickened into velvety richness. Served over steaming rice, the combination provided complete protein that sustained energy through long afternoons. The dish originated in New Orleans, but spread throughout the South as seniors discovered its remarkable economy and satisfying flavor. A single pot cost almost nothing to prepare, yet delivered 4 or 5 hearty meals. The ham bone, essentially free after Sunday dinner, contributed smoky depth that no seasoning could replicate. For seniors living alone, red beans and rice represented true security, knowing that protein simmered on the back burner. The dish reheated beautifully, improving as flavors melded. Tuna salad in tomato cup transformed 2 humble ingredients into something that looked almost restaurant-worthy. A ripe tomato was hollowed out carefully and filled with tuna salad made from canned tuna, mayonnaise, and whatever additions the cook preferred: celery, onion, or pickle. The presentation elevated a simple lunch into something special, while requiring almost no additional effort beyond assembly. Tuna provided lean protein and omega fatty acids at minimal cost, while the tomato shell added vitamins and fiber without extra dishes. For seniors whose appetites responded to visual appeal, the bright red tomato cradling creamy tuna stimulated interest where plain sandwiches failed. The dish could be assembled in minutes and eaten with just a fork, minimizing preparation and cleanup. Many seniors served themselves tuna in tomato cups when eating alone, proving that cooking for one didn't mean abandoning presentation. Welsh rarebit was the cheese sauce on toast that turned an ordinary evening into something resembling celebration. Sharp cheddar was melted with butter, mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and a splash of beer or milk, then poured over thick toast and broiled until bubbling. The sauce was rich, tangy, and deeply savory, transforming plain bread into a meal substantial enough for dinner. For seniors who'd grown up with this British-influenced dish, it carried memories of childhood suppers. The preparation required only a small saucepan and a few minutes of stirring, nothing elaborate. The cheese provided protein and calcium while toast added substance, creating a nutritionally adequate meal despite its simplicity. Many seniors made Welsh rarebit on quiet evenings, savoring the ritual of proper cooking even when dining alone. The golden, bubbling cheese represented proof that modest ingredients could still feel special. Squirrel stew might sound unusual today, but it was a popular dish in rural areas. Yep, our bushy-tailed friends were once a common ingredient in many kitchens. Also known as Brunswick stew, it was a tomato-based stew generally involving local beans, vegetables, and originally small game meat such as squirrel. However, many variations from around the world used rabbit meat too. The origin of this meaty stew is controversial at best, as the states of Virginia and Georgia both claim its birth, with Brunswick County in Virginia and the city of Brunswick in Georgia claiming it was developed there. To keep things peaceful, let's just say Virginia and Georgia both played a role in creating this delicious stew. Squirrel meat was easily hunted and provided a necessary source of protein. With the rise of chicken, squirrel stew has fallen out of flavor. But hey, this one is pretty easy to whip up and will satisfy your Thursday night meat cravings like no other. Coca-Cola beef skillet might sound like something dreamed up at a county fair food stand, but back in the 1960s, it was a weeknight marvel. You took a skillet, browned up a pound of ground beef with onions, added a healthy squeeze of ketchup, and then, here's the twist, poured in a splash of Coca-Cola. That was the secret sauce. The soda added a surprising depth, a sticky sweetness that balanced the tang of the ketchup and rounded out the beefy base. It cooked down into something thick and glossy, like a glaze that made every bite feel more indulgent than it had any right to be. Kids went wild for it, and parents loved that it took maybe 15 minutes to get on the table. Coca-Cola beef skillet was the edible proof that the best meals often come from a bit of whimsy and whatever is sitting in the fridge door. And if pasta was your pantry fallback, then the next recipe might just be your new meatloaf obsession. Sage-infused ground beef patties might sound like something you would find in a fancy restaurant today, but back then, it was just another stroke of pure homegrown genius. Sage was everywhere in the right parts of the country, and it did not cost a dime to pick some fresh sprigs. Mixed into ground beef with a little salt and a whole lot of care, the result was a smoky, savory patty that smelled so good cooking, you would swear it could make a grown man cry. Fried up in an old cast iron pan until the edges were crispy and the middle stayed juicy, these patties were tossed onto plates with a scoop of beans, maybe some fried potatoes if you were lucky. They were not just filling, they were soul-satisfying. And once you tasted beef lifted up by wild sage, you would wonder why anyone ever bothered with plain salt and pepper again. Speaking of dishes that hit you right in the comfort zone, the next one was a staple at tables that needed stretching a meal just a little bit farther. Now, the French weren't fans of the rabbit pie, so they decided to whip up a pigeon pie instead. This delicacy dates all the way back to the 17th century when James Hart, a Scottish physician, wrote in 1633 that pigeon pies were usually served with far too much pepper. It became an instant hit after Hart's paper, and people started cutting down on the pepper a bit. This crispy dish was a savory game pie made of pigeon meat and various other ingredients traditional to French cuisine. The buttery crust made it a luxurious treat which was common on banquet tables. It was a tradition for wives to make pigeon pie after their husbands spent long days hunting for the delicious bird. But hey, tastes change, and so do our feathered friends. Corn chip beef bake was born from the kind of pantry raid that happened in kitchens all across America in the 1970s. Imagine this: you have a pound of ground beef, a half bag of corn chips, a can of tomatoes, and that lonely packet of taco seasoning tucked away in the cupboard. What do? You make dinner magic. This casserole was unapologetically crunchy, cheesy, and bold. You browned the beef with onions and taco seasoning, then layered it with crushed Fritos, cheese, and tomatoes. Some folks threw in a can of kidney beans, others swore by adding sour cream on top right before serving. No matter how you spun it, this dish was like a Tex-Mex lasagna dreamed up during a grocery store strike. It baked into a bubbling golden masterpiece that was equal parts nacho, taco, and weeknight savior. Parents swore by it for potlucks, and just like that, a new casserole classic was born. But if you think that is inventive, wait until you see how cabbage and beef teamed up to stretch every dollar without missing a beat. Crispy corn cakes. Stuffed with seasoned beef were one of those foods you could smell cooking before you even stepped into the event. Little golden discs sizzling in big iron skillets, stuffed to the brim with ground beef seasoned with paprika, onions, and a pinch of chili powder if you wanted to wake up your taste buds. The outside was crunchy and golden, the inside savory and juicy. It was a dance of textures that made you keep reaching for just one more. The trick was to keep the corn cakes thin enough that they crisped up, but thick enough to hold all that seasoned beef inside without falling apart. At powwows and fairs, you would see kids running around with one in each hand, faces smeared with beefy goodness, while the elders sat back and nodded approvingly. It was simple, it was satisfying, and it was the perfect food for big gatherings where nobody had time for forks and knives. And if you think crispy stuffed corn cakes sound irresistible, wait until you pull up a camp chair and hear about the kind of chili that made starry nights and crackling fires taste even better. Jellied eels were a staple on the dinner table back in the 1900s. This dish was whipped up in London in the 18th century, when a bored chef decided to mix things up a bit. Here's the thing: eels were dirt cheap back in the day, so they were everyone's favorite source of meat. The dish consisted of chopped eels boiled in a spiced stock and allowed to cool and set, forming a jelly. It was usually served cold and made a good substitute for dessert. Since it was light on the pockets, the English loved to serve it at dinner parties and festivals. It also made its way out to other parts of Europe, such as Denmark and Sweden, which came up with their own versions of the jelly. You won't find a lot of people talking about jellied eels now, because it has largely disappeared from the British menus. But hey, if you're ever feeling adventurous enough, I say give this one a try. Shipwreck casserole had a name that made you curious and a flavor that made you stay. No one really knows where the name came from. Some say it is because it used whatever ingredients survived in the pantry. Others say it is just what happened to your kitchen when you made it. But if you were growing up in the 1960s or 1970s, you probably saw this show up on your plate more than once. Ground beef was the anchor, and from there, things got creative. Potatoes, sliced thin or cubed chunky, laid the foundation. Rice, usually the minute kind, came in next. Then canned tomatoes, the workhorse of every budget-friendly meal, tied it all together in a bubbling, slightly tangy mix that somehow always hit the spot. And if you think that is resourceful, wait until you see what happened when people tried to make steak rolls without the steak. Fry-bread beef sliders were the secret weapon at backyard parties before sliders even became a restaurant thing. Imagine little puffs of fresh fry bread, split in half, stacked high with juicy ground beef, seasoned with a wild mix of herbs, and just enough kick to make you take notice. These were not your fancy brioche bun sliders either. They had a rustic, crispy bite that somehow made the beef taste even beefier. Toss on a dollop of smoky sauce or a handful of pickled onions if you were feeling fancy, but honestly, nothing beat the classic. Beef, fry bread, and maybe a thin slice of tomato if it was growing in the garden. It was the kind of food that got you running back to the table before the adults could claim the last one. You might think nothing could top biting into one of those crispy, steamy little bundles, but the next dish might just prove otherwise. Pressed duck, a French-inspired masterpiece, is just as complex as it sounds. The dish involves cooking a duck and then using a special press to extract the blood and juices, which are then used to create a rich, flavorful sauce. You heard that right? A sauce made out of blood and bone marrow. Now, before you wrinkle your nose, this dish was a showstopper at French restaurants back in the day, and its unique taste spoke for itself. The complex dish was a specialty of Rouen, and its creation was attributed to an innkeeper from the city of Duclair. It's also known as canard à la presse, and is a specialty of the Tour d'Argent restaurant in Paris. Cooking pressed duck isn't a job for the weak and requires special time and effort, which is exactly why it has become a rare dinner time on our tables now. And then, of course, not everyone has a knack for eating a sauce made out of bone marrow. Beef macaroni loaf was what happened when mid-century homemakers got bored of plain old meatloaf and decided to shake things up, just a little. At first glance, it looked like the usual mix of ground beef, breadcrumbs, and seasoning. But inside, hiding like a delicious surprise, was elbow macaroni, cooked just shy of tender and folded right into the mix. Some versions even swapped out breadcrumbs entirely and used the pasta as the binder. Then came the tomato soup, poured in for moisture, color, and that unmistakable tangy sweet kick that Campbell's fans know all too well. The result was dense, hearty, and oddly elegant, like meatloaf had finally grown up and gotten a little flair. And because macaroni stretched the meat further, it was perfect for feeding bigger families on a budget. But for folks who wanted a more southern touch, the next dish took cornbread to places it had never gone before. Reservation-style ground beef and wild onion tacos were the kind of everyday magic that kept folks smiling even when times were tight. Ground beef was stretched thin, seasoned with salt, pepper, and whatever wild onions could be foraged nearby. If you have never tasted wild onions, you are missing out. They hit somewhere between a chive and a spring onion, with this bold, peppery snap that made plain beef sing like a church choir. Wrapped up in soft tortillas or sometimes even more fry bread, they were simple, satisfying, and straight from the heart. This was not a meal that needed fancy cheese or salsa piled a mile high. It was pure, straight-talking flavor that left you licking your fingers and hoping there was just one more taco hiding somewhere on the plate. Now, if you think beef and onions are a match made in heaven, wait until you taste how a little bit of sage could turn a beef patty into something unforgettable. Straight out of the royal family's dinner table, beef Wellington was a beef steak dish with the perfect regal twist. This delicacy was made of a tender beef fillet coated with pâté and duxelles, then wrapped in puff pastry, which made it just as fancy as it sounds. It was traditionally served with a rich red wine sauce, such as a Madeira or Cabernet Sauvignon reduction. Now, the origin of this meal is shrouded in history, but it is suggested that it emerged in England in the 19th century and was named after the Duke of Wellington, Arthur Wellesley. This steak required a lot of time and patience, which made it a meal for only the royals of England. It's a part of ancient history now, but you might be able to taste it if you make your way to Regal Balls or a Michelin star restaurant in London. Wartime ration hash was not glamorous. It did not pretend to be. But in homes across America during the 1940s, it was dinner, and often a lifesaver. This dish was the ultimate answer to food rationing and meat shortages. You would take whatever you had, maybe a handful of ground beef, a bruised potato, a few limp carrots, and you made it work. Breadcrumbs or oats were added to stretch the beef as far as it could possibly go. Sometimes there were bits of canned green beans or peas tossed in, and if you were lucky, an egg to bind it all together. Everything went into a pan and got crisped until the edges browned and the bottom stuck just a bit to the skillet. Flavor gold, right there. It taught families how to use every last crumb, and it gave a warm, filling meal when the world felt cold and uncertain. But when times got a little better, and people had a bit more to spend, things got saucier, cheesier, and a whole lot more comforting. Ground beef and cornmeal dumplings were a true lifesaver when money was tight, but stomachs were growling. The beef was browned up and simmered slow with a few onions and maybe a pinch of pepper. Then it was topped with dollops of cornmeal dough. When it steamed and cooked right over the beefy juices, the dumplings puffed up soft and tender, soaking up every bit of that rich, savory flavor. No one was counting calories back then. They were counting smiles around the dinner table, and these dumplings guaranteed a few extra ones. It was a dish that filled you up from the inside out, the kind of meal that stuck to your ribs in the best way possible. Even better, you could stretch a pound of beef to feed 6 or 7 people easy, which meant there was always enough for unexpected guests or seconds. If you thought that was the peak of stretching flavor and comfort, just wait until you hear about a casserole that captured everything good about ground beef and corn and wrapped it up in pure 1970s nostalgia. Before chicken became everyone's favorite pie stuffing, rabbit pie was a favorite on the Easter table. Made out of tender rabbit meal, this savory pie was a household favorite in many rural areas. Rabbit meat is not only rich in flavor, but it's full of nutrients, which made this a healthy choice for many and a staple of the American pioneers. Plus, rabbit meat didn't cost a fortune like most meat back in the day and was widely available. Along with rabbit meat, ingredients of the filling of a rabbit pie typically included onions, celery, and carrots. Some English variations included prunes, bacon, and cider, while the Australians sometimes included the food paste Vegemite. Rabbits aren't as common as they were back then, so rabbit pie has vanished from our tables and Easter traditions. You know what? All good things come to an end. Beef and cabbage skillet was not flashy, but it was reliable. And back in the post-war days, that counted for a lot. This dish came from the same logic that made Victory Garden's bloom and ration stamps necessary. Make the most of what you have. Cabbage was cheap, hearty, and available year-round. Ground beef, when you could get it, was used sparingly. So together, they made a meal that could stretch across a week if needed. The process was simple. Brown the beef, toss in shredded or chopped cabbage, season with whatever you had, salt, pepper, vinegar, maybe a splash of soy sauce or tomato paste if you were lucky. The cabbage softened into ribbons, soaking up every bit of beefy flavor while adding its own earthy goodness. You ate it straight from the skillet, hot and steaming, with maybe a hunk of bread on the side. It was survival food that did not taste like sacrifice. And if that sounds hearty enough, just wait until we take this same idea to the great outdoors with foil, fire, and a little campfire nostalgia. When it comes to the kind of food that could bring a whole community together, nothing beats a powwow taco skillet. Picture this: golden fry bread sizzling in a cast iron skillet, layered with spiced ground beef, beans, and a sprinkle of sharp cheddar. It is hearty, it is filling, and it is the kind of thing you could smell from half a mile away at a summer fairground. The best part was how everyone had their own little twist. Some would add green chilies, others would pile on diced tomatoes and shredded lettuce. No matter how you stacked it, it was one of those meals where you needed both hands and a whole lot of napkins. It was a festival favorite that always found its way back to the dinner table at home, whether or not there was a real powwow happening. Trust me, once you tried it, no ordinary taco could ever compete. But if you thought the skillet was the ultimate party trick, wait until you see what folks were flipping onto backyard grills during family gatherings. Ever wondered what the ultimate American comfort food was back in the day? Well, the only right answer is the veal and ham pie. This hearty pie combined the delicate flavors of veal with the salty goodness of ham. The pie's popularity surged during the Victorian era. It originated in the kitchens of English settlers and was a practical choice for using up leftovers, but soon became a meal for the elite. While it was a luxurious delicacy in England, it was a staple in large households in America. Not only was it easy to whip up, but was also cheap to make, which made it perfect for communal gatherings and large families. If you want to give your grandparents a rush of nostalgia, ask them about this meaty goodness, and who knows, your grandma might even dust off some cookbooks. Beef jambalaya bake took everything you loved about Louisiana comfort food and gave it a weeknight twist. Traditional jambalaya was made with shrimp or sausage, but when ground beef was what you had, You did not complain, you improvised. This casserole was warm, spicy, and overflowing with flavor. You would start by browning the beef in a skillet with onions, bell peppers, and celery, the Cajun holy trinity. Toss in some garlic, tomato paste, and a good shake of paprika or cayenne pepper, and suddenly, the whole house smelled like dinner was about to get exciting. Then came the rice, which cooked in the pan with beef broth or tomato juice until everything swelled and soaked up the seasoning. Some families added beans or corn. Others threw cheese on top and baked it for an extra kick. It was the kind of dish that got passed around the table fast and left nothing behind but crumbs. And if you think baking jambalaya was clever, just wait until you see what happens when you stuff a hamburger inside an onion. No bun required. Smothered ground. Beef and hominy was the kind of meal that did not just fill your plate, it filled your soul. Ground beef cooked slow and easy, seasoned with just enough spice to keep things interesting, and then tossed together with hominy so tender it almost melted in your mouth. If you have never had hominy before, just picture corn but bigger, puffier, and somehow even more satisfying. When the juices from the beef soaked into every kernel, you got a dish that was buttery, savory, and rich enough to carry you through an entire winter's night. Families back then knew that when you needed a dinner that would power you through long days and longer nights, this was it. It was not fancy food, but it was food that made you feel like you were winning at life, even when the cupboards were looking bare. Now, if you thought beef and hominy could turn a plain night into something unforgettable, get ready to bite into a dish that brought every powwow to life with a little bit of crunch and a whole lot of heart. If you think the beef heart is off limits for cuisine, you're wrong, because stuffed hearts were once a celebrated dish. This dish sounds like something out of a horror movie, but it was actually quite common. Think of the beef heart cleaned, stuffed with a mixture of breadcrumbs, herbs, and often pine nuts or raisins, and then roasted or braised. Sounds appetizing yet? This economical and tasty meal was a testament to the nose-to-tail philosophy of cooking, where no part of the animal was wasted. In Europe, the practice of stuffing animal hearts dates back to medieval times. It was a popular dish amongst the working class in England, while it was reserved for the elite in France. Eating hearts isn't as common today, but if you ever tried this one, you'd understand the hype. Sloppy Joe pie was what happened when someone decided that sloppy joes deserved a throne. You started with the classic filling, ground beef, tomato sauce or ketchup, a hint of mustard or Worcestershire if you were feeling adventurous, all simmered until it thickened into that perfect sweet, savory, sloppy Joe consistency. But instead of sandwiching it in a soft bun, you would pour it into a casserole dish and crown it with a golden biscuit crust. Sometimes it was homemade dough, sometimes it was straight from a can, but it always rose into a fluffy, buttery topping that made the whole dish feel complete. Some versions used cornbread instead, which gave it a southern twist with just the right amount of sweetness. And even though it was born in a time when ground beef ruled the dinner table, Sloppy Joe pie had enough personality to still turn heads today. But if you thought ground beef had done it all, just wait until you meet the recipe that turned soda pop into secret sauce. Ground beef and heirloom. Bean chili was not just a dinner, it was a memory in a bowl. Picture a heavy pot hanging over a campfire filled with ground beef simmering alongside a rainbow of heirloom beans. Pinto beans, black beans, cranberry beans, all the ones your grandmother insisted were better than anything from a can. The beef gave it depth, the beans gave it body, and a handful of crushed wild herbs gave it a smoky aroma that floated through the night air. It was not the tongue-searing chili you find at competitions today either. This was smooth, mellow, and rich, made to be eaten with big hunks of bread or scooped right out of the pot with a wooden spoon. After a long day of work or a night under the stars, nothing tasted better. If you were lucky, there was always a second pot heating up for breakfast too, because good chili was not something you left behind. Now, if you thought a pot of campfire chili could make a night unforgettable, just wait until you see how a little cedar smoke could turn plain beef into backyard magic. Chow mein hot dish was a Midwestern potluck legend. It walked into the room carrying the scent of soy sauce and sizzling beef and left behind nothing but an empty casserole dish and a few requests for the recipe. Born sometime between post-war optimism and the suburban casserole boom, this dish took inspiration from Chinese-American takeout and made it its own. Ground beef was browned with chopped onions and celery, then mixed with a savory sauce, usually soy sauce and a can of cream of mushroom soup. That combination might sound odd, but it made everything come together with a velvety, umami-heavy punch. But the real fun started when you dumped a whole can of crunchy chow mein noodles right on top before baking. But if that flavor combination sounds bold, buckle up, because the next dish on this forgotten road trip adds soda to the skillet and somehow makes it work. Nostalgic beef and sweet corn fry casserole was the dish that looked like a mess but tasted like a memory. Imagine browned ground beef bubbling under a thick layer of golden sweet corn kernels, all tied together with a few shakes of salt and pepper and a little bit of cream if you had it. Baked until the top got crispy and the edges turned caramel brown, it was the kind of casserole that made the whole house smell like comfort. In the 1970s, every family potluck or backyard gathering had at least one version of it, usually scribbled onto a crumpled index card or passed down by word of mouth. Sweet corn was cheap, beef was precious, and when you married the two together, you got a dish that somehow managed to feel luxurious, even when times were lean. The first spoonful always hit you with that sweet, salty magic, and before you knew it, you were scraping the sides of the pan for just one more bite. And if you thought this casserole was the gold standard of hearty, simple eats, just wait until you dive into a beef and hominy masterpiece that practically invented stick-to-your-ribs cooking. Beef birds, sometimes called mock steak rolls, were the kind of food that made you feel like you were having a fancy dinner, even if the meat came from the budget bin. The idea was simple but genius. Take seasoned ground beef, flatten it out like you are making an edible canvas, roll it up with stuffing or sometimes chopped onions inside, then tie or skewer it like it is some French roast on Sunday dinner. These little bundles were browned in a pan and sometimes finished in gravy, soaking up every bit of flavor like they had been waiting all day for it. The texture was soft, the taste was rich, and the presentation, well, that part made you feel like you were dining at a place that had real cloth napkins. They were a perfect disguise for humble ingredients. And just when you think the American kitchen could not get more inventive, along came a dish that turned ground beef into a noodle-topped flavor bomb with a crunchy surprise. Crispy fried beef and root vegetable pockets were not just dinner, they were survival disguised as a treat. Picture dough rolled thin, packed full of seasoned ground beef, diced carrots, sweet potatoes, and turnips, then folded tight and fried until golden and flaky. It was like the first generation of the hand pies everyone brags about today, only made from scratch, with love and whatever you had left in the root cellar. These little pockets were the ultimate grab-and-go meal before drive-thrus were even a thing. They stayed warm wrapped in cloth, perfect for long days in the fields or a chilly walk to the town market. Every bite was crispy outside, juicy and tender inside, with the sweet earthiness of the root veggies soaking up all the beefy flavor. Families would make dozens at a time and stash them away for later, if they managed to last that long. Now, if you think stuffing beef and veggies into a crispy golden package sounds brilliant, wait until you hear about the Sunday classic that brought sage, beef, and cornbread together into something that tasted a whole lot like home. Hamburger spoonbread casserole was as southern as sitting on a porch swing with a glass of sweet tea, and it brought all the heartwarming charm you would expect from something served at a 1940s church supper. Spoonbread, for the uninitiated, is not exactly bread and not quite pudding. It is somewhere in between. It is soft, warm, and creamy, like cornbread that has decided to ditch its edges and just melt in your mouth. Now imagine that heavenly texture layered over seasoned ground beef. The beef underneath was usually cooked with onions, garlic, and a dash of pepper or hot sauce. This dish was a hug in a casserole dish, soft, savory, and so filling you might not need anything else on the plate. It was also one of those recipes that always tasted better the next day if there were leftovers at all. But if this feels too soft and cozy for your taste, let us head into something born straight from scarcity and grit. Beef and sage cornbread bake was the kind of Sunday special that made you race home from church just to get first dibs. Ground beef browned up with onions and a heavy hand of fresh sage was tucked under a thick, buttery layer of cornbread batter, then baked until everything was bubbling and golden. The sage gave the beef this deep, woodsy flavor that wrapped around the sweet cornbread like a warm hug. You would walk into the kitchen, and the smell alone would tell you that it was going to be a good day. Plates were heaped high, smothered with gravy if you had a little extra energy, or eaten straight out of the pan if you just could not wait. This was the kind of dish that felt like a full holiday dinner, even if it was just an ordinary Sunday. You knew you were doing something right when every last crumb got scraped up by someone pretending they were just being polite. And if you thought beef and sage were a heavenly match in the oven, just wait until you see how beef, sunflower seeds, and a cast iron skillet could team up for a dish so hearty it practically stood up and shook your hand. Old school goulash, or as some knew it, American chop suey, was the dish that proved ground beef and elbow macaroni were soulmates. This one-pot wonder became a fixture on stovetops from Maine to Missouri. It started with browned beef, onions, and garlic, all bubbling away in a pot. Then came the crushed tomatoes or tomato sauce, which turned the mix into a deep red stew. Toss in a few handfuls of cooked macaroni, and suddenly you had dinner for 6, and maybe lunch tomorrow. What made goulash so special was not just the taste, though that was plenty satisfying. It was the simplicity. It was comfort food with no rules, and that made it a favorite in kitchens where imagination mattered more than a well-stocked pantry. Goulash was the dish that filled plates and hearts at the same time. But if you think that was creative, wait until you see what happened when someone took a bag of corn chips and turned it into dinner. Ground beef and wild mustard greens. Stir-fry was the kind of meal that showed up fast and disappeared even faster. This was not some high-end stir-fry piled with expensive sauces either. It was a down-home skillet sizzler made with ground beef cooked hot and fast, tossed with handfuls of peppery wild mustard greens, plucked fresh from wherever you could find them. Those greens had bite, real bite, and they gave the beef this sharp, earthy pop that plain old spinach could only dream of. A splash of vinegar, a sprinkle of salt, and maybe a little bacon grease if you had it lying around, and you had a dish that punched way above its weight. It was light enough for summer, hearty enough for winter, and cheap enough to keep families fed when money was just a rumor. Stir-fries like these were the ultimate in practical magic, a fast meal that felt like you had been planning it all day. And if you thought a pile of spicy greens and sizzling beef was as good as it gets, just wait until you bite into a crispy pocket filled with beef and roasted roots, the kind of thing great-grandma used to make when the nights got cold. Campfire foil packets were one part meal and one part memory. If you ever went to a summer scout camp or had a backyard cookout in the 1960s or 1970s, chances are you have made one of these. It started with a square of foil and a sense of adventure. You piled on raw ground beef, thin sliced potatoes, carrot coins, and slivers of onion. A little salt, a little pepper, maybe some garlic powder or ketchup if you were living fancy. Then you folded it all up, sealed it tight, and tossed it into the coals, or the oven if you were indoors. What came out 20 or 30 minutes later was something far greater than the sum of its parts. Some families added Worcestershire sauce or a pat of butter before sealing it. Others just kept it simple. But either way, it was delicious. It was also fun. There was something magical about unwrapping your own little packet and digging in with a fork. But if you wanted your beef with a bit more spice and southern flair, the next dish brought jambalaya right into casserole territory. Traditional cedar-smoked beef skewers were one of those dishes that proved you did not need 1,000 ingredients to create something unforgettable. Beef was marinated with just salt, pepper, and maybe a brush of honey if you were feeling wild, then threaded onto wooden sticks and slow roasted over cedar branches. The cedar smoke wrapped itself around the beef, sinking deep into every fiber, turning a simple skewer into a feast that could make even the grumpiest neighbor smile. You would find folks gathered around fire pits, laughing and trading stories while keeping an eye on their skewers, turning them every so often to get that perfect even char. There was something about the smell of cedar smoke that felt like a hug from nature itself, especially when it meant that dinner was almost ready. Kids would sneak bites straight off the sticks, adults would pile them high on plates, and nobody ever left hungry. And if you thought cedar smoke could work miracles on plain beef, wait until you see how mustard greens and ground beef teamed up for one of the most overlooked flavor combos in history. Which vintage protein meal would you bring back to your table? Drop your memories in the comments, hit like and subscribe so we can keep serving up these forgotten meals together.